Fantastic. Welcome to the November metrics meeting. My name is Gail. I've got a whole bunch of welcomes. Instead of reading them off one at a time, I'm going to invite you to regard this list. And if you happen to be on it, I'm going to invite you to stand up so we can see who you are and wave, and so that people know to find you. And that includes the conversion folks, so that they're here. So if you could please stand up.
John.
Yay. So welcome to the foundation. We are really glad that you're here. And I'm emailing this list out. And if you guys would be so kind as to find all these people and welcome them or re-welcome them, that would be much appreciated. And I'm hitting send on that email so that you have that. And I'm going to turn it over to Eric now.
Great. Good morning, everyone. So the first section that we have in today's meeting is an update on our strategy development process. And then we'll have a key theme for the day around the topic of structured data. So we have two big bulky pieces today, but the structured data piece breaks down into a few smaller presentations. So with that, I'll turn it over to Lila, and Kim and Philippe should also be co-presenting on this one. So let me just pull up the strategy slides. And here we go.
I don't think this is a strategy slide, but it's okay, it will do. Good morning, everyone. Last week, I sent an email to all of you, officially kicking off our strategy process. For some of you, it's probably not a big deal. You know, some people somewhere are doing something. Okay, great. Others, other people are actively being engaged. This is great. I am reading your comments. I am responding to them for those of you who are actively participating. And today we're going to spend some time walking through what are we actually doing, what does the process look like, and what is it going to look like in the next few weeks. One thing that's really important in strategy process, and this process, as we're doing it this time, and as we're going to continue to do it because it's going to be a kind of recursive process, is understanding and managing change. Strategy is usually all about looking forward and looking at the world as it evolves and as it's going to look like, and our place in it in the mid to long-term future. For most people, that actually is kind of challenging because that means changing what you do potentially today, what you're going to do tomorrow, but it also means really retaining what's really, really great about us, what makes us unique, and remembering that and identifying that and holding it near and dear to our hearts. So one thing that I want to start doing is highlighting the things that really surprise me and really make me inspired. They inspire me as I learn about them or as I see them happen. And today I want to talk about the project that happened on the engineering side, and specifically it happened in our core media wiki group. And it started earlier this year, but it really kicked into gear about 3 months ago. And it's actually being rolled out now. So it was very, very high velocity project. And why am I excited about this? I think this particular project really exemplifies the true spirit of who we are and true spirit of what an incredible leadership and where it can come from. It can come from anywhere. And the kind of people that we have in this organization. So the person who spearheaded this project was Ori. I don't know if Ori's here, but thank you, Ori. And it was entirely driven by his passion for our users. Remember, on the first time I stood here and I talked about this, I talked about who we are here for. We are here for our users, right? And this project was all about them. So Ori, Tim, and Giuseppe, thank you so much for doing this. You stepped up. You delivered real value to our users. The numbers are showing that we cut the save time on our pages by more than 50%. So it went from 7 seconds to 3. right? It was a complete open collaboration. So the project was done with Facebook engineers, and the Facebook engineers actually came in and were on site with us for a couple of months, and we're collaborating openly back and forth on an open source project, making it better on both sides. It really took true personal leadership. Nobody prompted this, right? Or just said, I see this needs to be done, I am going to go do it. And this is the kind of thing that can happen in organizations like these. And it's really, really incredibly powerful thing, right? Leadership comes from everywhere. Each one of you is seeing what needs to be done. And you should feel and believe and know in your heart that there aren't things in front of you that are going to stop you, right? We will empower you to do it. So please take this innovation and this excellence and grab it by the horns and bring it up and say, these are the things that need to be done. I want to see more of this happening. And again, thank you, team. So with that, I want us to actually look at what we're going to do with respect to looking at this, at our future, looking at the strategy. And with that, I would like to invite Kim to take over from me. Most of you, well, actually not most of you, probably anymore, right? Because we have so many new faces coming in every month. But Kim has been with us. She came into the organization about a couple of years ago, and she can say a couple of words about that. So she knows us really well. She's an anthropologist. You're a doctor of anthropology, right? By trade, and a strategist at the same time. So she has been helping us pull this together and make us all work together on this, or help us all work together on this. Thank you so much, Kim, and please take it away.
Thank you. Good morning. As Lila indicated, I have some experience with this organization, and so I just want to start by saying I was so pleased when the executives contacted me and asked if I might come in and help shepherd the strategy process. So a few months ago, all of you know, there's been some updates along the way. The strategy process was kicked off. That was kicked off with some conversations and some discussion and consideration of these big problems and issues. And strategy is complex, and as Lila indicated, it's very future-oriented, and this organization is kind of standing at a precipice of a lot of big issues to consider. And everyone is really busy. And so from that environment, I received a call that said, hey, would you come in and help us with our strategy process? So that led me to you. Some of you might remember me. I was here in 2012, and I did a cultural profile of the organization. Does anyone remember that? A few hands? Okay, I talked to some of you. I interviewed a number of employees. We sat down with people. We talked with you. We wanted to understand what makes WMF special and different. So I carry or wear two hats in the world. I am both a strategist and an organizational anthropologist. And what gets me excited is the coming together of strategy and culture. Because I do not believe that any organization can manifest its strategy if the culture is not aligned with that strategy. So when I work with organizations, I help them understand that convergence between strategy and culture. So I'm a perfect fit in some ways to come in now after having done the culture work, because I have an appreciation for what WMF is all about. And what I think of when I think of culture is almost the DNA of an organization. So I have a slide here. And up here is a very simplified version, and if anyone's interested in the culture study, I am happy to share that with you. We can talk about it, but up here is just a shorthand of some of the key elements that really popped as part of what I think of as WMF's DNA. Do some of these words resonate with you as you look at them? This is a very mission-driven organization. In fact, it may be the most mission-driven organization I have ever had the opportunity to be a part of and work with. You are mission-driven, you are principled, you are well-intentioned and energetic and optimistic and hard-working, and you really, really are principled, and you focus on excellence, you want to do a great job, you want to support your community, you want to make a difference in the world. All of this is key to WMF. So coming in to help with your strategy, recognize that I'm here to help marry the culture, what I think of as your cultural DNA, with the strategy as you start to look forward. How do we take this organization and leverage my little box that comes up, how do you leverage these key elements into the strategy as we develop the strategy? So that's the background on who I am and the introduction of who I am. Up to this point, I've kind of been quietly sitting in the corner. So now I'm here. I am open to conversations and questions about the strategy process. I'm going to talk you very briefly through what we're doing. I've been here for a couple of weeks, getting my feet on the ground, and now we're really starting to build momentum. And I want to preface the next section by telling you that our focus in going forward is going to be engaging the organization, engaging the stakeholders, getting input and insights into the key issues facing the organization, and also what does the future look like that we're beginning to organize around and structure for. So as we go to the next slide, where are we now? Some of this you might know, but I'm just going to give us an update so we're all at the same place. A few months ago, there were some preliminary strategy meetings that were called. Typically, it looks like about a monthly schedule of meetings that involved a variety of groups. There were groups of managers and directors and staff, and in those meetings, the organization began exploring what are the core competencies and capabilities of the organization. What are the really difficult questions, kind of these polarities is the word, the questions that we're facing. What's an initial SWOT analysis? So there's a lot of data that was drawn from the organization around who are you and what does that mean going forward. Since I've been here in the last couple of weeks, we pushed the SWOT analysis out to you. So I have that in bold print because it's still out there. We would love for you to log in, look over the SWOT analysis, contribute your ideas if you have them. We are watching, we are listening. There's been some have weighed in with some of their comments around what we're seeing. And just so you know, what's interesting to us is, well, in some cases where you have put something in a different box than it might have started. So where something might have been a threat, somebody says, no, 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 I think that's an opportunity. Or something that was a strength, maybe that's a weakness. There's this dialogue back and forth in strategy around how do we put these things into categories and what do they mean for us. So I encourage you to go in, check that out. We will be looking at that data as we integrate into our next steps. We've had a series of meetings over the last few weeks with a preliminary strategy team. This is just a starting place to open up the conversation. As we roll into the final point of finalizing our timeline and what we're going to actually do as we put a more formal structure around this process, we're going to shift that strategy team. So for right now, that has been a group to get the conversation going and get me into the process, and now we're going to open up into our next phase. And so the next phase, I think of in the next few weeks, is going to center around these three issues. First, we're looking at strategy, and we're going to start at a draft level in identifying what I think of as strategic tracks. What we mean by that are kind of the buckets that you would use to understand the general areas within WMF's strategy. So we have looked at buckets you might think of traditionally in an organization. Those could be functional buckets. What's the strategy for engineering? What's the strategy for grant making? What's the strategy for fundraising? We could build strategies across those functional buckets, but that's actually not where we're headed, because that doesn't reflect WMF and it doesn't reflect where you are in the world and what you're trying to accomplish with your mission. So we're looking at buckets that actually cut across horizontally and are looking at questions around how would we define what this organization does? So what might those buckets be? Right now, preliminary conversations. There's one about partnerships. Lila brought up a great example around partnerships. I love the story about partnering with the Facebook engineers and building out technology in this very open, collaborative environment. And I exchanged some messages to learn more about this with Rabla, and he explained to me that in some cases the engineers are just in public IRC chats open with each other, Facebook, WMF, it's that collaborative of an environment. So partnerships, collaborations, that's a way that you operate in the world. That would be a way to cut across the functional areas and look at what is the strategy for the organization in that type of track, a strategic track. What do we see emerging in the internet scape in the next 1, 3, 5 years? Radical changes. I know the organization talks about mobile and the emergence of mobile. These are key issues. What does that mean? Well, those might be examples of strategic tracks. So as we define our initial tracks, this is the part where you come in, we're going to look at creating what I think of as track teams. Maybe there'll be special intelligence units. But these will be small groups that are tapped to come in and join the conversation around a topic, to bring your expertise, to bring your ideas, to bring your enthusiasm. Not everybody is going to want to be a part of this, but some of you have a very distinct interest in sharing your ideas about what does the future look like for the organization, and you want to be a part of this conversation. And these track teams that will roll out in the next few weeks are going to be a way that we're going to engage the organization, internal, and also open up the opportunity for external input to really explore some of those strategic tracks. What do they mean? What do they mean for WMF? And finally, we're going to launch a community consultation, and that's going to happen effective November 17th. We think of it as a strategic visioning exercise. It's a little bit different. Now, all of you may recognize that the strategy process at this point for WMF in some ways is different than the strategy process you may have been a part of a few years ago. And the best person to talk to that, both our current consultation and how it might be different, I'm going to hand over to Philippe, who has been my right-hand person in pulling this consultation together. So that is where we are right now. We encourage you to be recognizing that we're going to be turning to you more for engagement in the strategy process. We're going to be communicating that process as we build out this timeline and roadmap. And we're excited about putting a structure in place that is not going to be a one-time deal, but is actually going to start to build some discipline in the organization across time, where a year from now we will be having a conversation around these strategic tracks and these intelligence units, and the organization will be asking these questions and having an opportunity to have this important dialogue that in many cases many of you are really wanting to have. So at that point, I'm going to hand it off to Philippe. He'll introduce you to our consultation, and that will get you updated on where we are today.
So many, many moons ago, my very first job 5.5 years ago at the WMF was running the strategy project, the community facilitation part of that. So this is sort of a going home moment for me. It's good to know 5.5 years later I'm in the same job. But this one is very different from the last one that we ran, which for those of you who were around or who've read about it, it was intense. It was a year long. It engaged thousands of users. We did deep dive research studies. This one is not that, and for that I'm greatly thankful. What this is, though, is that we are going to have a community consultation where we're asking our participants to give us their vision. We're really going out to the community and saying, share with us what you think this place should be. We're asking open-ended questions that are fairly carefully designed to get people to think outside their comfort zone and think sort of expansively and strategically, and not to focus them on being down in the weeds. We all know Wikipedians. Most of us are Wikipedians. We know we love to solve the little problems. We'll get down in the weeds and solve anything. This is an attempt to raise you up and have you think a little more strategically. And this is data that will inform the strategic direction and the ongoing efforts of the track teams. This is not, though, a lengthy, formal, intensive process like we did last time. I'm going to say that one more time. It's not like that. So what we've done is we've put together a wiki page. It's on Office now, on the Office Wiki. You can go look at it. It's going to roll out to Meta soon, where we propose a scenario and 2 questions. And we just ask community members to write about those things. The scenario is that the internet environment is changing. In the next 3 years, we expect to see significant impact from a couple of global trends. First, mobile. Not a surprise to anybody here. Second, the next billion internet users are coming online from Asia, South America, Africa, and they don't have preconceived notions of the Wikimedia products, and they also may not have the same preconceived notions of what it means to access an encyclopedia or a dictionary. So how does that impact our sites? So that's the scenario, and then we're asking contributors to answer two questions. What major trends have we missed? What would you say is another major trend that should be included? And based on those trends, the two we identified and whatever third or fourth or fifth ones you put together, what would a healthy and thriving Wikimedia project look like in that imagined world that we just created, where we accept those things as fact and our own input, and then what will a thriving and healthy Wikimedia project look like? Probably not exactly like we've got now. So that's an opportunity to get people to sort of imagine a little bit what they're doing. Important things to know about this, these are the key takeaways. It launches November 17th. It's on Meta. Everyone is invited to participate, and that means you too. A lot of people have asked if staff can be involved in that. Yes, you can. Please do. Staff have an important voice in this. You're part of the community. Please do weigh in. Feel free. Are there questions for Kim or, yeah, Kim? Yep.
There are plans to make sure that the content for the meta page, is that going to be translated before it actually gets posted?
It'll be translated, yeah, to we're doing professional translations for 5 languages, and we'll make a request to the translators for as many others as possible. And one thing we've done in previous consultations and also in the referendum that we ran a couple of years ago is we just encourage people to leave their comments in their own language, and we'll take care of finding out what it means. And we really put a lot of rigor into making sure we understand comments that are left.
Other questions? Anyone else? Anything online? IRC?
There's a lag. So.
Okay. Oh, back there?
One in the back? Yeah. There it is. Okay.
Oh, okay. So those questions right now are getting to our vision, right? The community's input into that vision. What is the role that WMF plays in that? Are we just going to be an enabler of technology, or are we also going to keep on providing the kind of community facilitation and support that we do today? Like, that's somewhat, I don't know, is that included so far in that identity question?
Well, right now, we opened the questions to be specifically oriented around a visioning exercise. So I think I have a twofold answer for you. On one hand, you're tapping into what I think of as some of the very complex, the problem isn't the right word, but these complex questions the organization is grappling with. So what is the role of WMF? Who is WMF? What is the relationship with WMF, the community? There's long-term, in fact, when I was doing the culture study a few years ago, these same issues were kind of there in the ethos around what is our relationship with the community, and how do we really define that? In some ways, we are absolutely one thing, we are supporting the projects, we are building the projects. In another way, we used a very expansive process a few years ago for the strategic plan, which was very community driven, and the feedback around that has been, in many ways, that was a great movement process, but maybe WMF wasn't quite sure where they fit in that process. And so in many ways, this process has been contextualized as, what is a strategy for WMF? So I'm getting to your question, which is, that's right where we're at. How is WMF going to define where they are in relationship to some of those key questions? Right now, the strategic tracks are going to inform us into that, and leadership will come forward with the strategic direction. So Lila's been talking for a few months around defining the strategic direction. A part of that strategic direction will be clarifying some of those questions around the foundation. Who is the foundation? What's the role of the foundation? Does that make sense? Secondarily, as far as asking the community directly, right now, we're seeing this as a highly interactive process with this consultation. So we're starting with very high-level visioning questions, and we have plans to dedicate, in fact, I don't know if this is a common term, but out of the legal team they call these sprints, where we will be dedicating time with a group of people to engage with the responses and build dialogue in what we're seeing. So some of the issues you're bringing up around, well, where does WMF fit into these visioning statements? those will be aspects that we will pull out of as part of the dialogue. So as we trigger the visions and we start to get this idea of what people are envisioning for the future, then we will be, as a team, engaging with those responses, asking clarifying questions, probing into that. Well, what does that mean for WMF? What should we be doing now? What can we be doing in the future? What should the projects be doing in the future? All of that will be probed and explored as a pretty intensive process. So different in intensity from what it might have been in the past, but potentially equally intense in encouraging the organization and the movement to think into the future and then identify where everyone fits. Does that make sense? A little bit. It's hard to answer because we just don't quite have what I think of as that hook to hang off of yet, and that's part of defining that WMF strategic direction. As Lila calls the North Star, the moonshot, this movement, this shoot for the moon was in the last email, right? This idea of where are we headed, that thing that we can hang on to. Our intent right now, you might have noticed on the slides, is as we build this process and we begin to engage the strategic track teams, it's going to take a while to sort through some of these really complex questions. And so we're looking at rolling out that strategic direction into the beginning of next year, and hopefully having that final strategic direction we can all hang on to by the beginning of the second quarter. So it's going to take a few months for us to get everyone aligned, get the engagement that we need, build into some of those very complex questions, explore where the organization comes out on that, and then begin to articulate clearly those answers.
Question over here. Talking into the mic up. Mic up. There we go. Quick question. My name is Joel. I'm curious to know if you can share anything that you've learned so far, anything that sort of stands out in your mind, a data point or a vision that came out that you had not thought of before, and then where can we go to sort of follow this conversation to know? Like, we've spoken in generalities, but it would be great to just have a little pickup of, hey, someone that said.
Great question. So what have I noticed so far?
Give me just one thing.
Well, I'm trying to think of the right words. There's so many. No. What I was trying to think of is there's so much about the organization reflects the culture that you are a part of as the Wikimedia projects. So what I've noticed so far coming in is that the organization is very good at churning up these complex questions. And then we're very good at sitting with those questions and exploring those questions. But sometimes it's very difficult to take that next step and actually say, okay, this is where we're going to choose to go in 1 year, 3 years. This is how we're going to make that next decision. So as far as an early observation, I think there's a tremendous richness of complexity of these core questions. And the opportunity we have in the strategic process is to push it to that next level of saying, here's the answer we have for some of those questions.
Do you mind if I jump in here a little bit, Kim?
Sure.
So I think this is actually a good segue, if you're all right with that, into the next section of the presentation, since we have about half an hour left, and we are.
One quick thing for Joel: where to go? There is the initial employee SWOT engagement was linked to a page on Office Wiki that was a strategy page, which we will start to build out with the details of the process and the roadmap and begin to create greater content there so that you can see some of the specificity that you're looking for.
Well, speaking of specificity, so one of the things that keeps coming up in a lot of our internal conversation is the theme of structured data. So we have talked a lot internally as part of the early explorations in this process around how do people use data in our projects, what do people do with it, how do people use data from our projects outside of the Wikimedia projects in things like Google search and other search engines, other applications, voice search, etc. And what does that mean for us? What does it mean in terms of how people come to our projects? What does it mean in terms of the editing experience? And what does it mean for our future? And there is one theme that I wanted to start unpacking a little bit today. We're also going to unpack in that context a little bit some of our early emergent mobile strategy. So I think that's a general thing that I just want to say before I dig into this. Strategy is also an emergent thing in organizations. So as you start doing work and as you start making these processes part of your DNA, you will be able to articulate priorities and direction in different areas with increased resolution. And this is an area where we're able to start articulating direction with increased resolution. So let's go right into it. So I wanted to tell this a little bit as a story because I think it's often important to think back a little bit in terms of how the web has developed and the role Wikipedia has played in it. And in this case, the role data has played in it. So in the early days of Wikipedia, it became pretty clear that structured data, tables, info boxes, lists, and so on would be a critical part of the encyclopedia. So it was not the case that this idea of Wikidata only came about very recently. In fact, the idea of Wikidata came about around 2004. This is why we have the wikidata.org domain name. This was a first proposal that I put out around that time. And about 2 days later, Magnus Manske wrote an email to one of our tech mailing lists and said, I just implemented this. And of course, it was not quite done yet. But this is something that we had talked about. So this was sort of an early exploration of, okay, how do you take these info boxes and put them in one place and manage them centrally? What could that look like? So what would the UI look like? What would the experience look like? What kind of system would you need to build in order to support that? So we've been thinking about this stuff for a long time. And around the same time, Danny Vrandicic and Marcus Krutch and others started building this technology called Semantic MediaWiki, which was a different way to attack the same problem. And they got very, very far down that road. So Semantic MediaWiki is actually very widely adopted, and it's an incredibly innovative technology that doesn't get nearly enough credit. It was really the first systematic solution for managing structured data in wikis. This is a wiki called AkaWiki, a wiki to summarize and document academic papers. And they use the semantic forms extension to manage basically the descriptions and summaries of papers through a wiki. That's just one of many, many, many thousands of examples now out there of the use of Semantic MediaWiki. It's especially popular in intranets as an alternative to other types of internal knowledge databases. And we are not using it very widely at WMF, except in a few narrow edge cases from time to time. But that has other reasons. Like part of the reason why it never became the central technology for structured data in our projects is that it doesn't actually address the problem of creating a shared repository of data. It still manages data within the context of, say, English Wikipedia, German Wikipedia, French Wikipedia. And what we wanted to strive for is to have one place to curate and manage and share data so we don't have redundant duplication all over the place. And in fact, others felt the same need. And so what started to happen around 2007 is that people started taking the data in Wikipedia and started processing it and started monetizing it, building applications around it. Very well-funded startup companies started to emerge that said, hey, there's all this really, really awesome data in Wikipedia. We can make a lot of money with that. And so they built companies and sold them and made a lot of money with that. And one of those companies was MetaWeb, and they built a very cool website called Freebase, which basically took all of the structured data in Wikipedia and built a proprietary application around it. And then that company was acquired by Google shortly thereafter. They also pulled in a lot of other data, not just Wikipedia data, but lots and lots of other sources of data into one place to manage it centrally and more effectively. And an open source project started to form which did the same thing as an open data set. DBpedia basically provided a downloadable dump of all the data in Wikimedia projects in structured form and became very popular for certain applications, but it's not editable. It's just a dump. So you can use it and you can build applications with it, but it is not a living and thriving community in the same way. So at this point, the big players started getting interested. Microsoft acquired a company called PowerSet that manages structured data and also worked a lot with structured data and Wikimedia projects. In 2010, as I mentioned, Google acquired MetaWeb, the operators of the Freebase database. And Apple started working very closely with Wolfram Alpha. Facebook had its own take on the structured data question with graph search, where they tried to connect subjects and areas of a knowledge graph with people and say, okay, I want to find the people in my network who match certain criteria. And around that same time, Wikidata started getting noticed, and The Guardian wrote this headline, "Welcome to Wikidata, now what?" This was around April 2013. This was when the language links in Wikidata went live. And we started using Wikidata as a project which launched officially in 2012 to serve language information, like the connections between Wikipedia articles as the very first application of Wikidata. And the community started growing. It started growing very, very, very dramatically just around that time. As you can see here, April 2013, when the language links started kicking in, that's when the community really started to emerge in Wikidata, and we now have about 4,500 people every month who are active editors in Wikidata. That's humans, not robots. There's also lots and lots and lots of robots. So there are real humans who actually go into Wikidata and curate the data and go into the discussion pages and negotiate the properties and discuss the ontology. Like, this is a real, genuine community, which is pretty amazing. Like, a lot of people, when this project first was discussed, were saying, like, you're never going to have a community around this stuff. And I think we've proven them wrong. So how is Wikidata different from these other efforts that we just talked about? MetaWeb, Freebase, which became the Google Knowledge Graph, the PowerSet integration and Bing search, the Facebook graph search. Well, for starters, it's world writable. Everyone can contribute, and there is a real community that has started to form around it. And of course, it's openly licensed. It's open source. You can build your own version of Wikidata. You can use the technology in different ways. It can become part of the infrastructure of the open web in ways that none of these other technologies can because of what they are. And because of what Wikidata is, it can become interwoven with the Wikimedia projects, which already have an active, thriving community. And that is why Wikidata has 4,500 people today, because a lot of them just came and started to contribute. So we can create these very positive feedback loops from the community that is building the Wikimedia projects to build the greatest structured data repository in history. So what can we do with it now? I'm not going to go too much into detail. I invite you to follow the links, take a look if you want. I'll put a link to the slide deck up later. The one piece that we solved very quickly, we, in this case, I should say, Wikidata is a development by Wikimedia Germany, which did all the heavy lifting on this project. The one piece that the project team solved early on in the process is the language links piece. The piece that the project really was designed to solve for are the info boxes. So these are the little tables of information that you find in, like, biographies, articles about cities, all the stuff that's sort of floating on the right-hand side. That's the stuff that was imported into DBpedia. That's what they focused on. Like, that's the stuff that's sort of the highest value immediate target for structured data in Wikimedia projects. And where we are with that right now is that Wikidata supports a lot of the data types that you need to have an entire info box in Wikidata. There's a couple of notable exceptions. Most importantly, when it comes to quantities, you can have numbers, but you can't have numbers with units. So if you want, like, square kilometers or something along those lines, you can't express that in Wikidata yet, which means that you, in some cases, you can't model an entire info box in Wikidata just yet. And that is part of the reason why the adoption isn't as high as it should be in Wikipedia actually using the data from Wikidata. But we are starting to see very interesting stuff. This is something that probably most of you have not seen yet because it's pretty brand new. And it's a community-created gadget. It is not the most beautiful thing in the world, but it works. And what it does is it basically is a gadget that you can turn on Russian Wikipedia in your preferences, and you can use it to edit structured data from Wikidata directly in Wikipedia. So the community is starting to think about, how can we make this stuff work for us? Like, how can I edit the data about Douglas Adams without going to the Wikidata item about Douglas Adams? Like, how can I do it in one place very quickly with shortcuts? The community wants this stuff to work. They're making it work. They're putting in the energy to make it work, which is pretty amazing to see. So this is starting to come together. But that's just describing Wikidata itself. So we haven't really talked about on what purpose it serves in our projects. We could do a lot around editing Wikidata, making it easier to edit, but are people going to use Google search and come across a Wikidata item? Probably not. Like that is probably not how the value of Wikidata makes its way into our projects. How does value then get generated? What are the applications we can build? Well, saving time by not having to update the same info box 30 times when a new population number is released by census, that is certainly a key benefit. But beyond that, you can build a lot of applications that leverage data, and that is precisely the reason why companies like Google and Microsoft are investing so much money in their internal knowledge graph databases, because these databases are powering every new application that these companies are building. Like you do a search for a specific query in Google nowadays, what used to be an organic search engine result page, increasingly is like 1/3 at the top, 1/3 on the right, information from like the knowledge graph and other internal data sources, because this enables companies to provide contextual information in a time-sensitive manner with a level of immediacy and specificity that you cannot get through free text. So there's lots of really exciting stuff that we can do in our projects if we integrate structured data well. And so these are some of the applications that we've started to think about, and these are some very early hypotheses around the kind of impact that these applications could have in our projects. We're going to show a couple of them today, the stuff that we actually are doing. So what's our strategy right now? So generally, we're thinking about Wikidata at WMF in a mobile-first way. Generally speaking, when we build new things, when we build new applications, when we build new contributory funnels, we really have to think about mobile devices first for all the obvious reasons. It's where all the new users are coming. It enables us to build applications that work across screen sizes, across device categories. That doesn't mean mobile only, but right now we're doing mobile-first work in this area. So we're going to talk a little bit about these two areas of work and what we're doing. But generally speaking, I just want to highlight there are really key platform capabilities in Wikidata that are missing. And the Wikidata team in Germany is doing amazing work, but WMF has a greater ability to leverage key resources quickly to help make key platform capabilities happen. And so we have to partner up to identify what's missing to help this project really achieve liftoff. And those are the conversations that we're having together right now with the Wikidata team and internally. One of the key pieces is queries and searchability of the data. The core capabilities in Wikidata that right now are very, very, very bare bones still. And we really need high performance, high concurrency query search capabilities to build all of these applications. That's the single most important thing right now. So we're starting to resource a key team to work with the Wikidata folks on that. We're also talking about file metadata as a potential area that is so complex and so hairy, but also so potentially powerful that we want to work together in making it happen. And Fabrice is going to give an update on that in a bit. In a nutshell, we want to help people build awesome things, and we want to change the world. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our presentations for the day. Any questions?
Since we're continuing on the same theme, I'm actually going to recommend that we go ahead and invite Fabrice and Guillaume up here.
Let's do it. Don't use it. It doesn't work. Use the cursors.
You'll press it for me?
Yeah.
Also, where is our timekeeper?
Thank you, Eric. We'd like to talk a little bit about structured data for multimedia. The community has told us over and over again this is one of the most important projects that we could work on. Today we're facing a lot of issues, as the next slide shows. Some of the problems are that it's really hard to search for images. If you go to Commons now and try to search for something, you're not going to get relevant content you're looking for. Also, many of the file labels, like category names or file names, are in English, so it's very confusing if you speak a different language. Some of the metadata is really important, like license information. It's either duplicated, there's a patchwork of different incompatible templates that overlap each other, or it's missing. And all this makes it very hard for our development teams to improve the user experience. So what we're trying to do now, next slide, is to start a structured data project for all media files. So we actually start using machine-readable data, which will make it easier for the users to read and edit, but just as importantly, enable the developers to take the whole thing a notch up. We're starting this as a collaborative investigation, working with the Wikidata team, working with community members, and it's likely to take a while to happen. So we're all, trying to plan it and try to be as careful about it as possible because it will probably take a few years to do. So the next slide shows a couple examples of how we might add structured data on the existing file pages that you see on Commons. We envision it possibly as being a separate section that would include all the structured data and then eventually be able to integrate it with the existing unstructured data. So the concept is to have a data view as a starting point. So if you look at the next slide, here's what a data view might look like. This is just a first concept, just a first example, but the idea is that you would, for example, have a title for a file. What a concept. And the title might be available in a variety of languages. You might be able to have related topics as well as categories. You might be able to recognize the concept that this is a work that may depict other works, and you might be able to have a more sophisticated set of rights and licenses that would basically give you smart suggestions on how to provide the right attributions. The next slide shows, again, a very early concept for how you might be able to improve the editing experience. So for example, in this particular case, if I want to add a description in Spanish, I can easily do it and I can be guided along the way. So it makes the whole thing a lot easier than having to edit everything in Wikitext in free form. So the potential is great for not only improving the viewing experience, but also improving the editing experience. And so the future shows a lot of potential for the entire movement. We hope that we can improve search. We hope that we can show information in many languages, that we can show related information, make it easier to reuse the files, and the whole process would make it easier to curate and contribute more information and deliver a better multimedia experience. We can envision the day where, for example, you're visiting a distant city and maybe a voice might whisper in your ear some information about the landmark that you're looking at, or how to pronounce a word that you don't know how to pronounce, or maybe show on your smartphone some related images about the landmark that you're looking at. So although a lot of this looks very nerdy, in fact it makes possible incredible things, and this is what we think is very important. So in terms of the next steps, we are in discussion stages. We're defining the project as a community. We are planning to allocate resources to make this happen. The next step will be to design the data structure, develop, test the prototypes, iterate all the time, and then migrate the unstructured data collectively over time. And this is a great segue to the work that Guillaume is doing, which paves the way for structured data.
Thank you. So I'm going to talk to you briefly about the file metadata cleanup drive. Yeah, so Fabrice has presented a vision of what structured data might look like in the future, with a nice editing interface, with a form, and a nice viewing interface. And once we have structured data, it's really easy for robots to understand which part of the data relates to what kind of information, etc. But I'm going to take us back to what we have today. And today what we have is Wikitext. So most of the files on Commons have an information and a licensing template. And most of those templates have special markers inside them that can basically tell the robots which part of the Wikitext represents the description and which part is the license, etc. So in terms of machine readability, robots can basically understand most of the content most of the metadata for the files on Commons if they have these templates and if the templates have the markers. And if we have this scenario, it's really easy for the robots to then migrate all of that content to structured data when the time comes. But as you might be guessing, it's not that easy. we have many files with the templates, but when the templates don't have the special markers. So in this case, it's more difficult for robots to understand the content. And it's actually pretty easy to fix this situation. We just need to add the special markers to the templates. But we have to do that across a few hundred wikis. And then we have the worst case scenario, which is plain wiki text. We don't have templates, and so we don't have special markers either. And this is what's going to be the most difficult to fix, because then we have to go through each file individually to add the template that will add the special markers. And only then will the robots be able to understand the content and migrate the information to structured data. So how many files are we talking about? So, So I've built this tool, which is on Labs, and Rachel is going to paste the link in IRC. So this is to get a sense of how many files we need to fix. So we have about 2.5 million files that are not on Commons, and so the script basically checks all these files to see if we can pull the machine-readable information. To give you an example, for the English Wiki Voyage, we have about 70% of the files that can be understood by robots, and we have, in this case, a little over 200 files to go. But we have other wikis where we have 100%, and that can be 100,000 files. We also have some charts. Yeah. So we've started this project a few weeks ago, and you can see the impact of adding markers to widely used templates. So in just a few weeks on the English Wiki Voyage, volunteers have added markers to a few templates, and we've gone from 9% to 70% of files that can be read and understood by robots. So how do we fix this? We have a how-to on Meta, and this is the Chinese version, because I wanted to show that we have awesome translators who have already translated the how-to in more than a dozen languages. This is linked to from the tool on Labs, so so that volunteers can just look at the how-to and see how to fix the templates and fix the images. So in a nutshell, please make the robots happy, and they will do all the work for you when the time comes. Thank you.
Make the machines happy and also make the humans happy. And speaking of humans, here are some of the first the team members who are coming together to make this happen. You recognize a lot of familiar faces, Malti-Chill and the DJ from our community, Lydia and Daniel from the Wikidata team, many members from other teams, from legal, even a representative from Europeana. So this is a really important effort, and we encourage you all to get involved. It's really important for us to make this happen, not just for multimedia, but for the entire organization and for the entire movement. We have an RSC chat on November 20th. We encourage you to attend, and you can click on the links to find a lot more. And the next slide shows you the link on Commons where you can participate. Join us. Thank you.
All right, and I think the next update is from Mariana, an overview on some of the work that we're doing on the mobile web with contributions to Wikidata. Sorry, no, it doesn't work today. Let's use the cursor.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Are we ready to welcome our robot overlords? How's everyone feeling about that? Hi, I'm Mariana. I'm the product manager for the mobile web team. I'm going to give you an update about what we're doing on mobile web in the past few months and where we're going to go from there. And I have no clicker, so it's going to be really awkward. Eric, slide, please. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about where mobile was a few years ago when I joined the team. This was it. This was mobile. We had some phones, and a few people had some tablets. It was really crazy. But phones are basically what we thought of as mobile devices, right? So they're just a smaller version of your computer. Slide. Now, things are getting a little bit insane with mobile technology. Now we're not just talking about a smaller version of your computer in your pocket. We're actually talking about entirely novel devices. For example, the smartwatch. and entirely novel ways of interacting with those devices. So for example, voice, or blinking awkwardly into your visor. So we're in kind of a different place right now, and we probably will be in a different place even more so in the future. Slide. So when we first started working on mobile, as I just mentioned, we kind of thought of it as, just a smaller version of your computer in your pocket. So, of course, you're going to need to edit Wikipedia from this smaller computer that's in your pocket. But, that's pretty tough to do. It's tough to do on desktop with a big keyboard and a big screen. It's even harder on a tiny little screen. It's really tough for humans to interact with this. It's also very tough for our robot overlords to interact with this. As a machine user, you have a hard time reading this information, and you have a hard time making sense of it. Slide. So what is the solution to this? As we've been talking all day, structured data, it's really great, right? If you're a machine user, you can suddenly take this giant wall of wiki text and make sense out of it. You can find little bits and pieces of it to serve up on a smartwatch, or you can find, what it is that the person is asking you for via Siri, and tell the person, read the information that they're interested in finding from an article. Slide. But, Wikidata is awesome, but there's a lot of work to be done to make it even more awesome. So these are just some numbers from Wikidata stats, and you can see we've got a ton of information already. 16 million things are in Wikidata today. I won't get too much into detail about what statements and descriptions are, because Wikidata ontology will melt your brain. But I'll show you a few examples of what it means when I say that there are 3 million things with no statements and 8 million things with no descriptions. Slide. So these are just 2 random places that Wikipedia knows about. One of them is a mountain in Korea, and one of them is a place in Ukraine, that's where I'm from. And Wikipedia knows a lot about these places. It knows that, the area that they're in, the geocoordinates. It knows kind of like a general idea of what the thing is. It can tell you all about it. Slide. This is what Wikidata knows about these places. It's a little bare bones. So all it has really is a name. It doesn't have a description in any language for either of these things. And it doesn't have any of these amazing properties that the Wikipedia articles have. It doesn't have the location. It doesn't have any information about where they are in relation to everything else in the world. It's sad. And if you go to Wikidata and you hit random item and you click around, you'll see a lot of entries like this that are just totally bare bones. Slide. So what can we do about this? How can we make the situation better, right? So mobile contributions, right? We were thinking, okay, it's a computer in your pocket, you'll be able to edit Wikipedia from it. Well, not exactly. Another thing that we can do is this. So if you actually go to the mobile site today, right now, to English Wikipedia, and you opt into the beta site, go to the little hamburger menu and go to settings and click beta, and you start surfing around on Wikipedia as you normally do, you'll encounter little questions like this. And what this is it's pulling from Wikidata, from what we know about this person, Martin Friedrich Rudolf von Delbruck, and it's asking you some information about this person. Now, why is it asking you this information? Well, so if you search in the Wikipedia app for Delbruck, you get a bunch of results. There are a lot of people named Delbruck, right? So let's say that you're writing a report about Prussian statesmen for school, as you normally do, and you're going off of one source from 1901 that mentions a Delbruck. Which Delbruck is it, right? Well, how do you know which Delbruck it is? Well, is it a German historian? Is it whatever this is? Is it a biophysicist? Who is this guy? It's really hard to get a sense of that in a quick, kind of easy-to-scan way, right? But if we start pulling this information out of the Wikipedia article, we can actually stick it into the search. So really what this is all about is taking the stuff that already exists in the Wikipedia article, all this wealth of information that's just trapped in long-form text, pulling it out of there, using a human being to verify that that information is correct, making it into a modular piece of data that we can manipulate and show in other places. So that's what we're actually doing, and we're testing a bunch of different versions of this, different questions, different question types, different ways of presenting the information, to hopefully one day, very soon, send it out live to all mobile users, which we're talking, millions and millions of people who are accessing the mobile site today. Slide. But really, this isn't just about mobile contribution. This is about contribution to our projects writ large, right? So today we're in a world where we have a tiny, tiny, tiny contributor base as compared to the billions of people all around the world who access our content. What we're trying to move toward, and what mobile is in particular working on, is a world in which that is not a distinction. In a world in which, as a reader, you can contribute, you can tap a button and actually provide really valuable information to Wikipedia and to other readers. So yeah, that's what we're all about. And questions? Fantastic. All right, I think Dan's up now.
Dan is up now.
Thank you, Mariana. Dan, are you ready to present?
Just about. I was tempted to pull a scary face there, but I resisted the urge.
I wish you had.
Okay, so, right. So I'm going to talk about what the Wikipedia app is doing to improve search, and it uses Wikidata. So first of all, can everyone hear me okay? Can everyone see my emulator here?
No,
There we go. Okay, so hopefully many of you have used the Wikipedia app, and you'll be experienced with searching for things like Manchester, and you'll get a long list of results, right? But the problem is a lot of these results don't have a lot of context. Manchester Guardian, what does that mean? You can figure from the name that it's probably a newspaper, right? But a newspaper where? Is it in Manchester, New Hampshire? Is it in Manchester? What about Manchester University, Manchester Airport? Like, where are these places? Where are these things? And obviously the answer to that question is contained within the Wikipedia article. But the problem is that article, as Fabrice alluded to, as Mariana alluded to, as everyone's alluding to, is all in this really unstructured form. So you can't actually figure out programmatically without scraping all of the content, which is scary, that what this thing actually is. So what we've been doing, so this is the Wikipedia app as it is today. If we go to the Wikipedia beta, which by the way you can all download if you go to Google Play, then the story's a little bit different. So if you start typing in Manchester, it gives you two modes to search in. One is titles and one is within articles. The titles, one, just because it performs a lot simpler queries, is way faster. So that's why that's first. But then if you go to within articles, we actually have some context here. So these are Wikidata descriptions. They're being pulled from Wikidata and they give you some context. So now when you see Greater Manchester, you know, okay, that's in Northwest England. Maybe if I'm looking for Manchester, New Hampshire, that's not what I'm interested in. And this example is actually quite well filled out. There are a lot of Wikidata descriptions. There are a lot of places that don't have Wikidata descriptions. For example, these two don't. So what we're thinking in future is it will be a really great way to get micro contribution out of people, is to, once they actually go to an article that doesn't have a Wikidata description, ask them if they can describe it and tell them that what that will do is it will put it in search results for everyone. And the brilliant thing about this is there's what's actually happening is that it's going to Wikidata and then being retrieved from Wikidata by the app. The user doesn't even know. All they know is they describe the thing, and now that description's there. So it's actually really simple from UX perspective, but offers a lot of value to the users. So this is what we're doing right now. We're working on the Wikipedia app, making it the platform for actually reading and contribute, and in the future, contributing on mobile devices. I'll actually give you a sneak peek of something we're doing on the alpha. So this actually isn't in the Google Play Store and the Wikipedia beta app, but obviously all of our source code is available, so if you want to look, you can. So actually slightly reformatting the way that articles are presented. So what's actually happening here is it's pulling the Atlantic Puffin article just as normal, but it reserves a little space at the top. It pulls a high-resolution version of an image in the article which represents it, and then puts the title here. And we're thinking about adding the Wikidata description underneath, so that then even if you end up with that article, you can get a quick summary of what the article's about. So yeah, this is our work right now. Thank you, and I'll take questions on IRC since we're moving along quickly.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
So we'll do one last quick demo. And James is just going to show some of the work that is related to a different kind of data, namely the data that is in tables and articles in our projects with the new table editor for Visual Editor. James.
Hi, everybody. I'm now going to try and demonstrate on a laptop that is not mine whilst talking on live video, so this is going to go very well. So here we have a visual editor, and now we have a magic new thing in here. This is a table. I'm going to try and zoom in. There we go. So this is a table. Previously, when you've edited with Visual Editor, you've seen tables. They've been lovely. You can click into the table and change the contents of a table, but you couldn't do something to the structure of the table. You couldn't add columns, remove columns. Now you can. Ooh. So I should say up front that a huge thanks to the Public Library of Science and their contractors at Substance.io who built this based on Visual Editor, and also yay for open source sharing between different organizations. So here is a table, and I'd say, oh look, here's a list of the people in the editing team. Here's a caption. Maybe we should change this. So this link can just be changed to something else if you want, as long as you can click right. It turns out I can't. But you can change it just like it's a normal content, or you can say, you know what, this oh dear, this is a perfect time. Yeah, so we can, for example, select the table and say, you know, all those engineering cells, they're all the same cells, so we can just select them all and merge them all together by clicking on the table button and merge cells. Done. Actually, I'm not sure that looks right, so let's just undo it. That was 10 minutes of Wikitext editing we did in 3 seconds. So currently, you can add and remove captions and edit the contents of captions. You can add and remove rows and columns. You can merge cells, and you can insert new tables. There are a few features that we want to add in the... Yes, here is my able assistant showing off features. You can insert a column afterwards. You can make things a header or a regular cell if that's what you want. So it's a lot of the functionality of editing a table structure. There's still some features left. And I look forward to doing things like being able to drag and drop columns around, which will be awesome and fantastic. But for now, everything just works. Oh yes, and here's a proof that it does actually work. Look, Wikitext changes with our thanks to Parsoid.
The stuff you would have to type
if
you were to do this manually. So.
Yeah. Anybody who actually understands Wikitext syntax for tables is lying to themselves and also knows the pain of editing them. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, James. All right. We did a bunch of collective sessions around structured data, so we didn't really take questions during the individual presentations. We're a little bit over time, but let's take a couple if folks have them for any of the presenters or around the theme as a whole.
Question right up front here, and then we're running another right there.
Hey, so how do we address a future where all of Wikipedia is in Wikidata and it's now being scraped by Google, and Google is and people on Google running searches are not, they don't need to come to Wikipedia anymore to access that information. They don't need to give us donation, et cetera, et cetera. That whole dark future. So
the dark future, yes. To me, the darkest possible future is the one where search engines and others don't care about our content. It's not the one where they use it. The one where they use it in new and innovative ways is the future we always imagined and the future we always wanted. If we make it possible for Google to give people information that is contextually relevant more quickly, that's great. Will it decrease traffic to Wikipedia? So far, I think the jury is out on that. We have done some preliminary readership analysis and referral analysis, and the evidence does not indicate that Google is actually taking traffic away. In fact, referrals from Google are, if anything, still going up a little bit. So there's no strong evidence that this is a negative effect on us yet. From the traffic perspective, the thing that I'm actually more worried about is that search as a whole is becoming a little bit less relevant, and people are accessing the web more through their social feeds and through other means, and that's where they go to Viral Nova and BuzzFeed and so on. But when it comes to the integration, I think when we succeed with Wikidata, when we succeed with the open knowledge graph, what is going to happen is that we have a positive relationship into the web as a whole that we can leverage in positive ways, whether it's through contributions of data, contributions of technology, and partnerships. And that's what I think we should focus on in order to turn this into a real opportunity. Lila, do you want to jump in, or are you just moving around? Okay. So does that answer the question roughly? And we're digging into that specific question right now a little bit. Prior to these strategic track teams that Kim mentioned, Lisa Gruhl has been doing a little bit of initial exploratory work around this topic, like what partnerships can we leverage and how. And this is definitely a conversation that is picking up a lot in the organization. Other questions for any of the presenters around the data theme? Yes.
It's probably a question for each wiki, but the thing where you're showing the Wikidata description of a topic and then potentially all the other facts in Wikidata, are wikis considering presenting that in articles the same way that mobile was doing?
Presenting information from Wikidata instead of or in addition to? Well,
for example, the Wikidata, this is a newspaper based in Manchester. I don't believe English Wikipedia shows you that. It doesn't get information about an article from Wikidata right now.
No, the way that this works right now is that pretty much all articles in Wikipedia, some percentage exceptions, but I don't think it's more than 10% at this point, are linked to Wikidata items. And you can programmatically access all the data that is linked to a specific Wikipedia article in Wikipedia itself already. So if you want to write a template that pulls this kind of information, you can. And people have started doing that in Wikipedia, and that is what is motivating the work that I showed on Russian Wikipedia to actually edit the data in Wikidata on Wikipedia directly, because they're starting to convert their templates over to use the Wikidata data instead of the locally edited data. So that process is finally starting to kick into gear. And I think the biggest impediment that is still limiting that process is probably the fact that some data types are still not fully supported. So if you want to take a whole info box and convert it over, you might say, oh, I can't do that yet, and then you give up. That's probably one thing that's still slowing this down.
Can I make a comment on that as well?
All right. We're waiting on lunch, so last question.
So lunch is actually ready, and we are doing a Thanksgiving-style lunch in the office today. So there are some very tasty pies and other things over there. So I'd like to invite you to all go, enjoy, mingle, eat.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Bye.